Parami, and brothers and sisters. Namo Buddhaya. So, as you know, I've been thinking and researching even on this topic of imagining the Buddha, reimagining the Buddha. And I've been looking at what happened in tradition. I've only done a little bit of research, and it's certainly not scholarly, but I found some really, really interesting material, and some material that I found deeply inspiring, deeply moving. For instance, I discovered that Xuanzang came to India in, I think it was the 6th century, and of course he wanted to visit the holy places of the Buddha. And he wanted to visit all the sites that were associated with the Buddha, the high places, the holy places of Buddhism in India. It was a wonderful journey for him. He was drawn to India as a magnet. And he wanted particularly to go to places where the Buddha had manifested. He wanted to go to places where the Buddha had actually lived and taught and so forth. But he's also drawn to places where it was said that the Buddha had manifested. So I read about one visit he made to Mathura, which is a city, it's still an important Hindu center in India, just south of Delhi. It's, of course, where the first indigenous Buddha images really emerged. Mathura was famous because it was where one of Ashoka's great teachers lived, Upagupta. And Upagupta himself had longed to see the Buddha. And in fact, people said that he himself was a sort of second Buddha. People used to worship him because they felt that through him they were in contact with the Buddha. But Upagupta, of course, attracted the attention of Mara. Mara really wanted to get to grips with Upagupta. So he used Upagupta's longing to see the Buddha. So one day, Mara appeared to Upagupta in the guise of the Buddha. Very cunning. But Upagupta simply fell at the Buddha's feet and worshipped him. So Mara, apparently, we're told, said, yeah, got you. But Upagupta said, no, you haven't. I knew you were Mara all the time, but because you appeared as the Buddha, I'm worshipping you. So apparently this all took place in a cave, which I'm told you can still visit. And when the Buddha appeared, as it were, shaped out of Mara, which is a very, very interesting metaphor in itself, he cast a shadow on the wall. It was actually a shadow of light, which is quite interesting. And Upagupta said to the Buddha, well, please don't leave me. So the Buddha said, well, I've got to go. By now he's the Buddha, if you see what I mean. He said, I've got to go, but my shadow will remain. So the Buddha's shadow remained on the wall of the cave as a sort of glowing outline of light. And generations of Buddhists went to this cave, saw that glowing outline. So Xuanzang had heard about this shadow of the Buddha on the cave walls in Mathura, and as soon as he could, he sped to see that cave. He went into the cave with great longing, with great expectation. No shadow. No shadow. And he was deeply, deeply upset. And we're told, he himself says, that he just wept and wept and wept. For 3 days, he wept before that image, prostrating himself again and again and again. And after 3 days of weeping and prostrating, he saw a faint glow on the wall, and that was enough for him. Many, many stories of that kind, of people desperately wanting to see the Buddha. Constantly, I long to see the Buddha. That's the sort of mood that you get throughout Buddhist history. People wanting to see the Buddha. People seeking the Buddha. And that's what we're doing. We too are seeking the Buddha. But where to look? We don't have a cave wall, so to speak. Well, you could argue that we do have a cave wall, metaphorically speaking. where to look for the Buddha. Well, we can look among us. In thinking about this talk and thinking about this theme in general, I've been more and more struck by the experience that we have collectively. We've all been ordained. That's what introduces us to the order, the act of going for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. When we go for refuge to the Buddha, we're not going for refuge to an abstract concept. We're not going for refuge to an idea. We're going for refuge to something that is alive for us, each of us as individuals. We feel a connection with the Buddha that we wish to dedicate ourselves to. We can't stop ourselves in the end. So for every one of us, the Buddha has been alive, was alive at the point of our ordination, and insofar as we've continued as order members, he's still alive for us. The Buddha, if you like, in the broadest sense, not, so to speak, narrowly the historical personage of the Buddha, but his deeper inner meaning as well. So, yes, we've all got that connection with the Buddha. We've had it from the moment of our ordination, if not before. What is it? Some 2,000 of us. What's the latest figure?
1,770.
Huh? 1,770 connections with the Buddha. Of course, in varying states of aliveness, sometimes fading, sometimes becoming stronger, but all of us have that living, imaginative connection with the Buddha. All of us here have that connection. All our brothers and sisters all over the world, wherever they may be, wherever there's an order member, one characteristic that they will have is a living connection with the Buddha. He will be for them an image that is deeply compelling, deeply attractive. So that's the first thing to remember. Why we can seek the Buddha amongst us is because the Buddha is with us and has been, since the order was founded. But there's something even more than that. We've, all of us, to a greater or lesser extent and in various different ways, been consciously connecting with the Buddha and trying to deepen our understanding of him. We've all been doing puja from time to time, some of us with greater enthusiasm and assiduity than others. We've been surrounded by images of the Buddha. We've all of us bowed many, many, many times. We bow now before the Buddha. We do, most of us at least, or many of us, we do some sort of sadhana practice. Many of us visualize the archetypal Buddha and Bodhisattva figures who represent the inner dimension of the Buddha's experience of Bodhi. So there's a great wealth of experience, an active quest for the Buddha, an active seeking of the Buddha, not merely a seeking, a finding of the Buddha, and a deepening understanding and connection with the Buddha. Pursued very systematically by some of us more hit and miss maybe, sometimes very strongly, sometimes we wander away, but always, insofar as we remain order members, coming back to the Buddha, coming back to trying to cultivate and deepen our connection with the Buddha. Huge wealth of experience. I was delighted to see Ananda at supper. Can't think where he is, but I think he's I was going to say our oldest living order member, but I don't mean that, our oldest continuing order member. So for 43 years, he's been going for refuge to the Buddha. For 43 years, in one way or another, he's been connecting with the Buddha. The Buddha has been kept alive in his heart. And 1,770-ish. Men and women have been doing that throughout those 43 years in ever-thickening numbers. But collectively, we have a very powerful experience of connection with the Buddha, or at least of constantly seeking that connection. probably your experience will be like mine, that sometimes that connection is very strong. You almost don't need to make an effort. You just sit down, do your sadhana or do puja or just reflect on the Buddha, do Buddha Anusmriti, and the Buddha is there, absolutely there. I went to Bodh Gaya earlier this year, and I've been going for the last 5 years. And when you're there, it's really easy to feel the Buddha is there, at least at times, beneath all the cacophony. Yes, so the Buddha is alive amongst us. Bodhi is alive amongst us. It's something real, something felt, something experienced amongst us. And this is something quite wonderful and quite special. It's very important, I think, that we recognize this common experience, common living experience of connection with the Buddha and deepening understanding of who the Buddha is. It's important for us as individuals. It's important for us collectively. But it's important also for our world, because we are the vehicles through which the Buddha enters the modern world, whether it's the modern world here in Britain or in India or in Mexico, wherever in the world. The Buddha enters the world through our experience of him. Something very important for us to recognize. I think sometimes, for instance, with beginners, we're a little shy of our own feeling for the Buddha. But people see the Buddha reflected in us. If we show our faith in the Buddha, our devotion to the Buddha, some will catch it from us. The Buddha has no other way of entering the world but through us, through our real feeling for him, our real understanding of him. His message, which is the message that the world needs more than anything else, comes to the world through us. So yes, this is quite wonderful that 1,770-ish men and women are in deep and deepening contact with the Buddha and trying to allow the Buddha to come into reality, to manifest. The Buddha manifests through us, and he uses, so to speak, you forgive my metaphors, he uses the medium of our minds and our experience. He's got nothing else. He has to use the material that is available to him. So the Buddha's essential reality manifests through our particular psychic experience. It forms through that experience. And this, of course, coincides to a greater or lesser extent of the fellow citizens around us with the experience that they have. So the Buddha is able to contact them through our contact with the Buddha. So we're able to bring the Buddha to life in ways that are appropriate to our own times, as Xuanzang, Upagupta, and so many other great Buddhists down the ages have brought the Buddha to life for their times. So those who planned this convention thought that it was time for us to make this more conscious, even more conscious, to recognize the living quality of the Buddha's images among us, because there's not, of course, a single image. The Buddha manifests in many different ways through our particular characters, interests, cultures, and so on. But all these ways of manifesting are alive amongst us. Through them, the Buddha is alive amongst us. So it's important that we make this conscious, that we do share this, and that there are many, many different ways in which it's manifesting. Even if it's experienced in diverse ways, represented in diverse ways, there's a common experience underneath it. So during this convention, we want to make this conscious and even explore it to some extent, as much as is possible in these short days and with such large numbers. We want to engage in a sort of collective exercise or exploration. It's not just a question of listening to talks and having a good discussion. We want to try and do some collective inquiry, some collective exercise together, so we all participate in trying to reveal how the Buddha is manifesting among us, so that we can share that and deepen it through understanding it, and so that we can help our other brothers and sisters in the world to contact with the Buddha. If we're more aware of how it works for us, or in all our different ways, how will it work for others? It's more likely that what works for us is going to work for them than what worked for Chinese of 1,000 years ago, or Tibetans of 500 years ago, etc. It's more likely to work for others as it works for us than it did as it did for those. So, of course, we're going to be exploring this through meditation and puja and so forth, and even our many other activities. For instance, our friendships with each other are all predicated on our shared going for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. In the end, what we've got in common, all we've got in common, is the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. It's a quite common experience I have. What have I got to do with these people apart from the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha? And that, of course, is everything. So, yes, even in our coming together, our conversations with each other, our studying together, doing the various smorgasbord of board, whatever. I'll forget my Swedish. Of activities, all of those are presumably connected with our shared dedication to the Buddha. But we're going to be especially doing it collectively through 3 activities during each day. For the first 3 days, we'll start off in the morning after breakfast with a talk. And each of those talks will be exploring one particular way of seeking the Buddha. You could, of course, have chosen many, many other ways of seeking the Buddha, but these 3 have seemed to us to represent at least broad, basic categories. And they broadly correspond to the Trikaya, although not in a doctrinal sense. So the first talk tomorrow morning is from Vishwapani, well qualified for the job, talking about seeking the Buddha in history or through history, looking at the way in which the Buddha arrives with us through our historical connections. It's something I find quite extraordinary, quite magical sometimes when I'm doing a practice like Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. I reflect that I'm doing something that was taught 2,500 years ago by my master, the Buddha, Maitri Bhavana. Even though we probably don't do it quite the same way, it's essentially the same practice. 6-element practice. It's the same practice as the Buddha taught. So we are quite literally, immediately disciples of the Buddha through history, because those practices have been handed on both personally and through literature, and arrive with us. And there are many, many other ways in which one can talk about this, and Vishwapani will be tackling this subject tomorrow morning. But our hope is that these approaches, these talks, are really there to stimulate our own reflection. They're there to stimulate our own reflection on how the Buddha comes to life for us through those particular avenues. Because what we want is then to bring something out of what comes to life for you. After each talk, I'll tell you the other 2 talks. On Friday morning, Dhammadinna will be seeking the Buddha through symbol, myth, and archetype. She'll be looking at the ways in which the Buddha comes to life for us, or we can go looking for the Buddha in the world of imagination, in the sense of symbol, myth, and archetype. And then on Saturday, Jnanavaccha will be seeking the Buddha within reality. The Buddha, if you like, as the Dhamma. The Buddha said, he who sees the Buddha, he who sees me sees the Dhamma, he who sees the Dhamma sees me. So Jnanavaccha will be pursuing this theme. So as the talks are going on, I hope that they will strike recollections for you, they'll strike chords for you, they'll make something conscious for you, maybe conscious already, but something that maybe not conscious, that you recognize, yes, this is a way in which the Buddha touches me, this is a way the Buddha reaches me. And we'd like you to make a note of that as it goes on. After each talk, after a short break, after a tea break, short tea break, very punctual, Ratnaguna will lead us in a reflection on the substance of that particular talk. I believe he's going to just open up a space for us to inquire a bit freely. So then again, what we would like you to do is look closely at your own experience under each of these headings and try to see the ways in which these have worked for you, do work for you, and might even work better for you in the future, so that we become more and more aware of how the Buddha is reaching us, how the Buddha is touching us. In the afternoons, we'll be meeting in small groups, each of which will have let's say leader. We will be simply sharing our individual experiences of connecting with the Buddha down that particular pathway, so that we'll hear a range of different people talking about how the Buddha is alive for them through history, through symbol, myth or archetype, or in symbol, myth or archetype, and within reality through the Dhamma. The Dhamma not just, of course, as the words of the Dhamma, but the living reality behind those words. So we'll collect our experiences, bring them together, share them with each other, and somebody in each group will make a rough note. We're not expecting very full notes. There are too many people to read through all the notes for a start if they're very, very full. But just some headings that give us an idea of where the Buddha is most alive for people. And we're hoping that when we bring all that together, something will show itself. Of course, nothing may show itself. We may just have had a good time and communicated about something that's very, very important to us all, and shared our experience together. That will be enough. But if we can learn something from that, I think that will be really wonderful. What I've got very much from the conversations that I've had with Bhante on this subject of reimagining the Buddha, and then my own reflections coming out of that, is that Bhante wants us to be looking much more deeply into our experience and relying less on formulae, on images that we've inherited from the tradition. Of course, those images are very, very important. They themselves communicate something to us. But we need to look at what's sparked off in us by those images rather than simply at those images. And part of what I'm hoping will emerge from this is how that is working. Because surely it is working. With 1,770-ish men and women actively going for refuge to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha throughout 43 years, actively seeking daily a deeper and deeper connection with the Buddha, surely something new is emerging. Something old is being revealed in new ways. And let's see if we can find something out about that. Let's see if something is revealed through that. I don't think we'll exhaust the topic by any means. I'm not even sure whether we'll start it. But I'd like us to have a go. We'd like to just see if we can together learn something about ourselves and about, therefore, our times and how the Buddha is already manifesting amongst us. Yes, there will be a leader for each group who is there just to make sure that everybody gets a turn, that somebody's experience isn't so rich and so full that nobody else gets a chance to have any, and that somebody makes a record of the broad headings, if you like, so that we've got something to pull together. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what emerges from this, if anything, although I'm quite open to nothing coming from it. I don't think we should put too great an expectation on it. But I'm very keen that we acknowledge together the real experience that we have and try to make that more conscious and share it. And I hope that will help us to communicate who the Buddha is to our fellow citizens of this earth much more effectively. If we see what really works amongst us, surely it will work for others, at least for some others. In my own researches, I've had a very strong impression of this quest that's constantly renewed throughout Buddhist history. From the earliest times, even from the Buddha's own lifetime, people were questing for the Buddha. People sometimes with enormous desperation almost, wanting to see the Buddha. It seems, particularly after the Buddha died, that the sense of his absence was almost overwhelming for many people. And you get that in many sutras, this strong desire to connect with the Buddha, almost, yes, desperate desire to see the Buddha, the abhilasha, longing to see the Buddha, which can sometimes lead people on tremendous journeys of quest. Often these journeys are presented in quite literal ways. People will literally go, like Xuan Sung, to the cave at Mathura. Sometimes they're much more inner quests, but you get the sense that for Buddhists down the ages, the desire to see the Buddha, the desire to find the Buddha, is the overwhelming impulse, the overwhelming drive, the desire to see the Buddha, to meet with him. Because it's felt that when you meet the Buddha, if you're in the presence of the Buddha, you'll be lifted up towards him. You will, through contact with the Buddha, see the Dhamma. You'll see the Dhamma directly for yourself. People missed him deeply, deeply. But they found him as well. Again and again, they found the Buddha. They found him in their own experience. The Buddha came to life for them in visions. The Buddha came to life for them in teachings that they received from dimensions we can't even speak of. Again and again, the Buddha has appeared throughout the history of Buddhism in ways that people could experience, because he appeared in their minds, in their cultures, in the language that they spoke, the inner language that they spoke. The Buddha will always appear in the language that is our language. And that's what's happening. That's what happened to Xuan Sung. He looked for the Buddha, he longed for the Buddha, he wept, he prostrated, and the Buddha appeared. And that's what's happening to us. Now it's our turn to seek the Buddha amongst us. As it says in the good book, seek and ye shall find. But the good book sometimes is the good book. If we truly seek the Buddha surely will be there, and we are seeking the Buddha, so the Buddha is here. Let's share him with each other. Namo Buddhaya.